V-SPANN, the American Veterans Communications Network.
Welcome to the Veterans Special Programs American National Network, V-SPANN. Our spotlight today shines on Virgil Poole, a member of the original Tuskegee Airmen during World War II. In the next 30 minutes, we're going to learn about this elite, history-changing group of American airmen during the war. You're going to hear about their personal experiences as human beings and soldiers. Virgil, welcome to V-SPANN. We're proud to have you here. Very proud indeed to have a member of the original Tuskegee Airmen along with us. The global war started in 1939, went through 1945, and you didn't join the military, you were drafted.
Yes.
Tell us about the process. It's 1941, and you're drafted into the Great War, the Great Global War. How did you wind up as a member of the Tuskegee group?
Well, when I got to Battle Creek, Michigan, is where the recruiting station was, I was kind of astounded to see fellows marching around in civilian dress, and it was raining and snowing and terrible weather, and I all of a sudden had an attitude of, what in the world am I doing? I don't even know where I'm going. I don't know what's going to happen to me, you know. And I saw an individual whom I knew, and I mentioned to him, I said, what's the deal here? He said, well, look at the wall. I looked up at the wall, and there was a huge photograph of Uncle Sam pointing out toward me, and it said, Uncle Sam needs you. Then at the bottom of the picture it says, United States Air Force is now recruiting and training. I don't know what the expression was for my race, but whatever it was, it had to do with Afro-Americans, and at Tuskegee Institute. I'd never been in an airplane in my life, but I said, this got to be better than walking and marching in the mud. So I said, okay. So I went into the orderly room and requested to be enrolled in that program. It necessitated 21 years of age and college, both of which I had. So he said, okay, you go sit down and we'll call you. I was the only person sitting where I was sitting. About 10:30 that night, he said, Poole. I said, yes, sir. He says, grab your things, let's go. I said, what things? He says, haven't you been issued anything? I said, I don't have anything here, this is what I came with. He said, well, follow this gentleman. And I followed the second lieutenant, who was the recruiting officer, and he directed me to the train. I got on a train with a motorman and a conductor and nobody else. In the car I was in, and I sat down, and he said, you're on your way. I said to myself, well, this is what I asked for a different change. Then I began to think about Tuskegee, you know, what's this going to be all about? So when I awakened, I was told they're in Chehaw, Alabama, and the train's going to slow down, and you jump off, we'll throw your bag behind you, and they'll come and get you. And that happened, and they arrived in a Jeep, said, Poole, I said, yes, jump in, welcome to Tuskegee. And that's how it all began.
Now, we should point out that during World War II, Americans were called to serve, except African Americans. Yeah. African Americans were not allowed to serve in World War I. And for a large portion of World War II, the Jim Crow laws still existed.
True.
That kind of demanded racial segregation. Tuskegee was the first military establishment for African Americans, and it was put together, if I wasn't there, but it was put together with the intent to fail. It didn't fail. Tell us about your experiences when you arrived at Tuskegee.
Well, it was quite an experience for me because much to my disappointment, the physical exam revealed that I suffered from glaucoma, which disqualified me for service as a pilot. But I had education and experience that made me necessary to become a part of the cadre that was going to be originally formed because the 99th was already there in train with a certain number of pilots, and when they reached their quota of pilots, they were going to be sent overseas. So I was sent away to a school to learn all about secret messages and typewriting and all the necessary things for intelligence, I guess, and geography, which is necessary for the operational ability because I was going to have to help out in the organization of flight patterns and the location of enemy instances that would be detrimental to pilots in their flights and so forth. And I spent a considerable amount of time in Fort Logan, Colorado, and then back to Tuskegee. About the time that they had reached the quota, I guess, it was necessary for the 99th to be sent overseas. And I was told then, Poole, you're going to be transferred from the 99th Squadron to the 332nd Fighter Group, which is going to be organized by the time you get to Selfridge Field in Michigan. And you will work as a operational and intelligence specialist to assist in flight planning and interrogation of pilots and the necessary elements to make the pilots qualify to perform as they need be as fighter pilots in World War II. Well, I went to Selfridge Field and we developed 3 squadrons: the 100th Fighter Squadron, the 301st Fighter Squadron, and the 302nd Fighter Squadron. These were formulated into a group called the 332nd Fighter Group. We later were enjoined with the 99th Fighter Squadron, which had already gone overseas in North Africa, preparing to be sent over to Italy. And we followed, leaving Selfridge Field, went down to Virginia, Camp Patrick Henry, to be prepared for overseas duty. And there was the beginning of one of the most ridiculous experiences I think I've ever had. And I wasn't prepared for it because I'd never been confronted by it before. The African American officers weren't permitted to be enjoined with the Caucasian officers under any circumstances. Eating, drinking, socializing, nothing. We sat upstairs in the theater and they sat downstairs and that type of thing. But eventually, objection began to arise. Truman Gibson, who was a member of the presidential committee that was overlooking our development, was advised of what was transpiring, and our commander, who was at that time was Colonel Davis, Benjamin O. Davis Jr., who was a West Point graduate and was the commander of the 99th Fighter Squadron, was moved over to become commander of the 332nd Fighter Group. And he became commander of the base. And he changed the rule So we became realization to the fact that we were going to become organized, a great feeling for us because we're getting ready to go to combat. So we left Camp Patrick Henry, went aboard Liberty ships to North Africa, and we lounged around there on the ground. I slept on the ground for I don't know how long, living on preamble tents. And pretty soon we were told we're going to be moved to Italy. So we were moved along with an infantry group to Italy, and we went to Monte Carvino, an air base in Italy. And we were assigned to an airfield that was necessary and needed repair, and we were kind of begrudged for reputable aircraft to function with. These were discards that the British didn't want, I guess, Spitfires, and they had to be patched with Hills Brothers coffee cans or whatever else necessary to patch the holes that were in them. And no combat experience was enlisted to us. And then the colonel began to voice his opinion about what was happening, what was transpiring, and Truman Gibson came over, and he brought Eleanor Roosevelt with him. She saw what was happening and went back the next day to Washington and advised her husband, who was the President of the United States, of what the circumstances were, what the conditions were, the treatment we were receiving, and things began to improve.
And Eleanor Roosevelt, who was instrumental, didn't just go there. Eleanor Roosevelt probably had the flight of her life. When we return, we're going to hear how Virgil's role in intelligence and operations helped provide our bombers a path to successful missions and safe returns. This is V-SPANN. This is V-SPANN. Our spotlight today is on Virgil Poole, who spent some remarkable time as a member of the team in Tuskegee. We were talking about being in Italy and Eleanor Roosevelt coming to visit, and she not only visited but got a plane ride of her life. Talk about that.
Well, I don't know too much about it because it was high-class dialogue, but she returned with Truman, and soon after that we got all kinds of goodness, good airplanes, and there was a deep discussion between the commanding general and the commander of our unit, and that's when the conversation came up about our disqualification and birthrights and so forth, and the commander made a statement that what's the purpose in being here? If we can't go to combat and perform as we were here sent for, we might as well be at home, you know.
And if I recall, Eleanor Roosevelt came back to Washington and said, those boys can really fly.
Yeah, she did.
That got attention.
She gave us all the publicity necessary to make them recognize us. Then we got transferred from the 12th Air Force to the 15th under Nathan Twining, who was very happy to have received us, and whom his people in the Mediterranean theater of operations, we had several meetings that I was privileged to attend, and they had a plan. And the plan was to have the fighter escort procedure change, whereas we would escort the bombers to the target, go up top, and wait for a signal from the bombers that they concluded their performance, then come down, sit on top of them, and ride them back. And they came back, which eliminated the loss of bombers, which, as I oftentimes make reference to the fact the old 10-to-1 ratio was really established there, because there's only one of us, if lost, to 10 of them in a bomber, which kind of made it a battle on our part to really save the situation.
And the lives of the
yes, and
bombers.
We did an excellent job, and were commended constantly. Bombers used to erroneously stop on our field to meet personally and know the pilots of the group that had escorted them back, and it was a wonderful relationship. And it happens even now. Sometimes we do get members of the family of some of the bomber groups contact some of our fellows, so that they can rest us assured that they're grateful for what our performance. But we had an unusual group of pilots, because what you had was a bunch of guys who were selected to perform a high-class test, militarized, but yet were considered incapable of performance. So they took it upon themselves to prove this is not only a violation of God's law, which had to do with the equality of man, but had to do with the ability of an Afro-American, if properly opposed to opportunity and preparation and education, could qualify by birthright as well as by performance and how he lived. And this it's a beautiful attitude that I used to discuss with the pilots, because I just felt like they needed to be encouraged constantly, and I had personal relationship with them, and I talked with them all the time, and I talked about how magnificent they were and how proud I was to be a part of them, and it made me feel that I was actually a part of a successful story of what was transpiring.
And a very important part too, Virgil.
I think
your role.
It has a lot.
Well, your role was one of, in my opinion, extreme importance, because as a chief in operations and intelligence, you were a part of a team that was responsible for plotting the course to get those bombers to their mission sites safely.
And we were taught by the officers who were operational officers, intelligence officers. We were taught exactly how the interrogation was to go, how the initial teaching of what was to be transpired during the flight was to happen, so that it then allowed for questions that might have been answered that we weren't thinking about, that they were able to come. And we were trained very well, and I was honored to be accepted as being capable of relating to these men, and they called me professor. I liked that. I had a wonderful relationship with all of them, and it's an experience that I'll never forget. And I may be 92 now, but I don't believe that I'm that old, because I don't feel that way. You know, I feel like it's a reliving that I experienced, and I began to feel I got all kind of opportunities since then in my historical and in my personal progress as an individual after the war was over. I got good jobs, and I was performing, and even now I voluntarily go about trying to enlighten people about what really the Red Tail is really all about. It's not more than an historical true story about mixed interracial combat procedure and record. It's an interracial and proof that God made us equal, and man is beginning to recognize the equality of brotherhood in man. And as a consequence, now that we have had the pleasure of having an Afro-American made president of the greatest nation in the world, what more could we ask for now that we have the accomplishment, and I feel that I am somebody. And it's a wonderful feeling for me. But what I like to do now is I want to spend the balance of my life relating to people. I go to school groups, church groups, organizations, whoever, and voluntarily explain the truth of what really transpired so far as the Tuskegee training of Afro-Americans to be a part of the United States Air Force, and that the recognition of what they'd done by Congress was related to President Truman and passed out by President Obama, and now even the Air Force Hall of Fame has given recognition to our accomplishments. And I just feel it's a complete story, and I have lived a complete life. And it's a wonderful opportunity for me to relate to others so many things that they don't know. I need to talk to parents as well as children, because that eliminates a lot of conversations at the dinner tables that are wrong and don't help our situation at all.
Earlier in the show, Virgil, we were talking when you were at Tuskegee, that the laws, if you will, or just the general approach still promoted racial segregation. You mentioned the movie theaters, where Afro-Americans sat on the second floor, Caucasians, white Americans sat on the first floor. The rule changed. The general changed the rule, but the rule doesn't change people's hearts.
No.
At what point did you see that performance and humanity changed based on acceptance of what you were achieving?
When the Tuskegee Airmen were publicized as a principal cause in the cessation of World War II in Europe by getting our bombers to target to destroy the fuel that the Germans had to use to function all their mechanical instruments and bring them back and never lost a bomber, was just fantastic. People found it difficult to believe. And this movie, Red Tails, enlightened people as to just what the function really was about, what was really going on, you know, what the living was. And I think so many of the bomber groups came back and brought back a different attitude, a different racial issue that made it easier. I noticed in schools a change that was very, very practical. And I taught at a junior college in Chicago on black history, and I compensated a portion or two my experience with the Tuskegee Airport and how that has changed around so many of the other organizations within the city of Chicago, you know. President of the Commonwealth is a black woman. You know, it's so strange. You just don't believe it. It's just odd. And then when we do have an Afro-American president of the greatest nation in the entire world, I say, I think it's coming through, finally, that it's not as bad and odd as you thought it was, and the people aren't as different as you thought they were, because President Obama's wife has revolutionized women I think, throughout the United States, because she's participated in everything conceivable to help the situation. And I think it was all predicated by instances such as the Tuskegee Airmen and all of the welfare and all of the good that was assessed through Eleanor Roosevelt, basically, and through our participation as a military unit. We're not the epitome, maybe, but we certainly are a contribution to the historical progress or progression and the elimination of a lot of discriminatory factors that have held things back. But I think it's all revolutionizing itself, and I feel within my heart that it's all good. I just can't believe I'm 92 years old, because it seems like it's a whole new thing for me.
And maybe, Virgil, there will be a time in the very near future where we won't have to preface a gender with a race. I hope that time is coming soon.
I think it's arriving.
When we come back, we're going to be talking about the long overdue recognition, the accolades that have been bestowed upon Virgil and his fellow Tuskegee Airmen. This is V-SPANN.
V-SPANN is a network designed to serve the American veteran. Its mission is to inform, inspire, enlighten, honor, remember, and entertain. Soldiers and veterans will not ask for our help, but it needs to be given nevertheless. Winston Churchill once said, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few." This sentiment stands true today.
Veterans deserve this. We owe them, not the other way around.
It's time to pay back our debt to our soldiers and our veterans. It's time for V-SPANN.
This is V-SPANN. We're talking with Virgil Poole, a World War II vet and a member of the storied Tuskegee Airmen. What a story, too. We were talking about the long overdue recognition. Some of the awards and the decorations included, Virgil, here, as you know. 3 distinguished unit citations, at least 1 Silver Star, 98 Distinguished Flying Crosses, 14 Bronze Stars, 744 Air Medals, and 8 Purple Hearts. Those are awards and decorations, but some of the other acknowledgments come in other forms. Talk about the recognition that you're seeing now. Long overdue, but it's finally coming.
I've had to confront individuals who were a part of our organization who were criticizing the fact that it took from 1945 until 2011 for us to get some medals and honor and recognition. And I say to them, it took from the day you were born until now for you to have a black president. So why are you so upset about something that you've got? You didn't have to ever get it, but you got it. So what you do, revel in it and enjoy it, you know, and be proud of it. Don't make people ashamed of the fact that you have it, because you criticize the fact. And that's the way I live. My life is like that now, you know. I enjoy I get all kind of compliments and things. I'm awarded all kind of things and jobs and money and scrap. But all I needed, I got. I got recognition of the fact that, contrary to what some supposed knowledgeable people assumed, there was an inequality amongst mankind. But now, thank God for the greatest book in the world, the Bible, we have found, I think, 7 or 8 instances where we were told that we're born equal. So that lends all that. That's all over with now. So I'm ready. Whatever I'm on earth to do, I'm going to do it, and I'm trying to get it done now. because I believe what has to happen, people have to know the truth about what really transpired, and let them recognize the fact that those of us who have been honored are grateful for the recognition and proud to have served. But we did a performance of duty, and it was nothing specially designed for us. So that's my attitude about the whole thing. And Tuskegee Airmen certainly contributed a great heritage, a great historical thing to the world, but it happens every day. And I'm ready to be accepted as equal as another member of the greatest nation in the world.
And you're wearing with pride a gold award, a citation that came from President Obama.
Yes.
Talk about how that was received by you.
Well, you know, the medal was awarded congressionally. To military men. It was not presented to us until President Obama called us. He sent every one of us that was eligible an invitation to go to Washington to receive the medal. And it's a beautiful scripted thing to have, and a letter of his gratitude and the nation's gratitude to us for what we've done. And it's something that, I don't know, my wife hides it from me because she thinks somebody's going to come in the house maybe and steal it, because we had a Tuskegee Airman, someone burglarized his home and stole the medal, but apparently he tried to pawn it, and it was recovered from the pawnee, and he got it back. So I think that this is I guess it's the epitome of thanks from the government and from the people of America for my participation and for participation of all the rest of the fellows that were part of the Tuskegee Airmen. And I can't begin to express the true and sincere and deep gratitude I have for the privilege of being honored as I have been.
And as that gold medal shines,
Yes.
It shines on an organization of dedicated men from an incredible organization that the light shines on them too. Our V-SPANN spotlight was on the Tuskegee Airmen and our special guest, Virgil Poole. To learn more about Virgil and the Tuskegee Airmen, visit their website at www.taichicago.org. This program was made possible through the studios and future broadcast professionals at the Illinois Center for Broadcasting, Lombard Campus, where broadcasting careers begin. You can visit beonair.com for more information about a career on radio and TV. You're watching the Veterans Special Programs American National Network. This is V-SPANN.